is what's left of the side of the cabinet, and that is the dado depth. Meaning, there it is right there. If I put it on the outside, match it there, the inside where the dado or rabbit is right where that dashed line is. Okay? It's basically this idea. So this is going to tell me, if this is the bottom of the cabinet, how big, how long is that bottom? Because it will be 18 inches minus a half an inch and a half an inch should be 17. We don't care about inside to inside because that's not quite 3/4, so it's going to be odd. Okay? So I do the same on the other side. So I do 11/16 and I do a half an inch. So this is the first actual layout, okay, of the cabinet. Now, I have one dimension of cabinet, left to right. So what do I have to know what pieces I need to cut out is I have the length of the bottom, the top, and probably an adjustable shelf if I'm putting the shelf in. Okay, good. So that's all I have. I also have, and I haven't marked out yet, the back of the cabinet. How wide is the back of the cabinet? So if I take this idea where you can also do just a cabinet back that attaches. Okay? I think it's fun to do this sort of thing because it gives you more something to do.
Doesn't it give it more strength?
Yeah.
It's a cleaner look.
It's a clear look from the side. You don't see any back, but it's also if the back is the right size, it squares up the cabinet beautifully. Now you can still square up a cabinet like this by having it flush here, but I just find that this is a much nicer thing. We don't need to go to this level. I wanted to show you that in case you wanted to ever do this. The cabinets that are in Sun City are like this. And then wherever there's a gap in the wall, they put a piece of molding, so it's up along it. And every cabinet has a little piece of molding thing. It's a little flexible, they can push in and nail it down. But, so right now we're looking at left to right. And let's actually do this little rabbit here. And so I need to erase a little bit back here, and a little bit back here. And this is where this thing comes in, combination square, because it's great for parallel lines against an edge. So I'm going to go 1/4 inch. The plywood is not 1/4 inch, but we're going to just call it 1/4 inch because we don't care right now what that is. Okay, there's the back of the cabinet, and it is left with 1/4 inch. So this is where it'll show you exactly how big this back is. And again, I just put a little notch there and a little notch there. Now, if I actually do my list of cutting, I can say my back is from this point over to this point. And if you think about it, we have 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch. Overall is 18. We know it's 17 and a half, right? But I mean, it's nice to draw it out. Sometimes if you had a center divider in this cabinet, which would of course make it really awkward narrow, you can actually put your bottom or top on the layout and mark exactly where the center is, where that joint should be. But we're not doing that, so that's fine. Okay, so that is left to right. We haven't done a drawer or a door yet in front, so let's do that now. Part of that discussion is hinges. Okay, so we have two kinds of hinges. And this kind is for a face frame, and these are all called concealed hinges. They're 32 millimeter, they're European style hinges, but now they've accomplished all kinds of great things with them. So these are great for if you have just a cabinet with no face frame and you just have an edge on this. So your hinge is mounted like this, and this is actually in the cabinet door. Typically from the edge of the cabinet door, it's about 3/16 of an inch to here. These are all adjustable in and out, top and bottom, this way. They're wonderful hinges. I'm not wild about this brand, but that doesn't matter. It's the idea of that. So if we are using a European style cabinet, the cabinet door is going to be out 18 inches. If you're making, let's pause for just a moment and then look at, we have different styles of cabinets, meaning if you are doing a set of cabinets and you're doing a bunch of 18-inch cabinets, you want a little bit of space between doors. You don't want the cabinet to be butted right up there. You want a little gap because the doors swing and happen. When I was a cabinet maker and when I did cabinets, if we had 2 or 3 or 4, let's say we had a 4-foot long cabinet, it would all be one cabinet. Nowadays they make them, 18, 18, 18 or whatever it is, and they just join them together. So each cabinet, the way that they had designed them now, is that the cabinet door, if this were the door, has just a little bit of space between the cabinet door and the side. So that if you get another cabinet next to it, with another cabinet door, you have a gap between the doors. And so there's a difference in that. But right now we're just doing, without them joining together, we're going to make this cabinet door end to end for the European style. Okay, that's a frameless. So again, I'm going to go 3/4 of an inch thick plywood for the cabinet door. And I'm simply going to draw a line across there, 3/4 of an inch, and there's my door. Okay, I'm going to go back and extend the cabinet side. I know this is probably boring and tedious, but you got to do it in order to lay it out. This is the problem with, I think a lot of woodworkers love to say, oh, I want to design this and do it, and if you don't know how to lay it out, it's kind of like building a house without a set of plans. You can't do it, or it's pretty hodgepodge. So this is the idea of how do you actually do this. And so if we look at this as just, this is the basic cabinet door for a frameless cabinet. Now, to answer your question, Chris, about how do you put more than one layer on things, okay, we're going to say right here, same place, left to right, but I'm going to draw another line saying, okay, now we're going to do a face frame cabinet. Okay, everything's the same this direction, but we're going to add, here is part of my face frame, and here is part of my face frame. And the face frame is 3/4 of an inch thick, so I'm going to go out to there with it and do another one. So there's my face frame, and there's my face frame. Okay, I don't know how wide these are yet, but if we look at these hinges here, and we figure this is actually face frame material. This is solid wood as a face frame. This cabinet, this hinge mounts on the face frame and does the same thing that other one did. Okay, and you can have a face frame almost however wide you want it to be. But this one, we're going to figure that it's again 3/8 of an inch from here, which means that we add the 3/8. Let me mark it. Put a mark on this. There's the face frame, and we're going to add 3/8 of an inch. And so we have 5/8 of an inch from the edge of the face frame to the edge of the door. And on a typical framed door, you want about a 1/2 inch gap, at least a 1/2 inch. Sometimes you do an inch visual of what's left on the cabinet. So in this case, let's just do a 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch or 1.5 inch face frame is very typical of a cabinet that has a face frame. So we're going to do 1.5 inches. Okay. So this is my actual face frame. So what's that going to do is it's going to tell me how, again, the verticals are stiles, the horizontal is rails. Rails always butt to stiles. So this tells us how long the rail is. Another length left to right dimension that we have. So we have the top and bottom, shelves if we have them, we have a back, and we have the rail that we have one dimension of. Of all the things we have, all these parts that go into this cabinet, we have 4 of them. We have one dimension.
Dimensions.
All the horizontal dimensions. Right. Okay. So, and because we're doing a panel door, I think we should actually make a panel door as well. We need to show the door on top of that. Okay? So, from the edge of the cabinet we just did was 5/8 of an inch. So we go to 5/8 of an inch, there's the edge of the cabinet door. And we'll do the 5/8 over here. And we'll draw a line. Okay. There is our cabinet door width. Typically on a cabinet door we use, say, 2.5 inch. Sometimes they're 2 1/4. I'll go 2 inches for rails, for vertical stiles and rails, or 2 inches. Okay, so this gives us a little bit of more information about our door. So now we have, doing layout is tedious, but it gets all the thought process is a big puzzle. How do you put this puzzle together? That's what this is about. So there is my cabinet door style. You don't even have to go 3/4 of an inch. You can just set your thing, because all you're looking for is one dimension here. The thickness will come later. Okay, so there's my cabinet door. The two styles that come up. There's a bottom rail, top rail. If you look at that cabinet door right there, stacked up on the thing, you'll see the top rail actually has a curve to it. You can do all kinds of curves to it, but the dimension here to here is still the same. This one, and again, you have to figure out what connection you're going to make for the door. The stiles and rails, I just do butt joints like that, because they're attached to the cabinet. They're not going to come apart. But on a cabinet door, you've got to have some type of Mortise tenon. These things are coped and whatever they call them for that kind of joint. We have router bits that do that. So you have to figure out your door to get how big is your panel. So if you're doing just a flat panel, Mortise and tenon joints, you're probably looking at a 1/2 inch in. And so if you do that, you can say, okay, there's my 1/2 inch, and there's my panel width,
What's your panel thickness?
1/4 inch.
Do you worry about the tinny rattle?
No, not necessarily. I mean, you can be concerned about that. If it's a good tight fit, then you don't have to worry about that, because the plywood is glued in and is a tight fit. If you're doing a raised panel, a lot of times there's a little bit of angle to that just to get so it's a really nice snug fit. Sometimes they manufacturers now, they put little wedges behind them to make them do that.
The space balls.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that remedy that, because they're now everything's in big production. You do it, with machines and stuff. I like these. What are they called? The coped and the router bits that do the
Yeah.
coping. I like that style, but I tend to like, for me personally, I like the shaker style where it's just a square edge and it's just a nice panel. Next week I'll bring in some pictures of some cabinets that I did that you could see some of that kind of detail. Anyway, so this then shows me the cabinet panel width if I'm going to use this system. If I'm going to do this type of joint like that, then I need to know what the router bit is, so I know how big to make that panel for that. Sometimes I will actually go through and make some sort of fake wood grain, just a hatch mark, so I can say, oh, that's solid wood. Okay. Sometimes that helps. Okay. When I was in the cabinet shop, every 1/4 inch back or every 1/4 inch panel was this red lines or blue lines or something. I forget what it was. So, okay, so there's our width. Now let's look at height. Do we have any questions about width? Does that make sense? Boring as all get out, I know that, but
It'll come to me as we build it.
yeah, it'll make a lot more sense as we're building. But we're going to basically be able to do, and I have some paper here, a list of parts. And once you have the list of parts, you label them and say, okay, this is the left side, this is the right side, and you cut them on the saw. You never have to come back to this until you're done with that, and then you come back and say, okay, where's that dado go? Where's that go? Where's this go? And then you can mark them, and you go do that. So that's what this is about. It's like, this is the plan. This is how it's done. You can always change it. I've done curved cabinets. I've done wacko stuff that if you don't have a plan for it, you can never figure out how to do it. So, okay.
You said the frame
Say that
base
again?
is 2 inches? The
I think I did
base
these.
frame?
I did these 1.5 inches. The door I put is 2 inches.
Gotcha.
There's no absolute standard. Okay. There are some standards, but those are always, every rule can be broken, I think, in this thing.